Hello, how you doing? It's Sam. Welcome back to my planty channel. Today I really wanted to take a moment to share some of the plants that have done exceptionally well through our moving process and the neglect that they encountered after we moved before I could really get to them and tend to them, take care of them. And I have quite a few, so I'm going to do my best to get through this as quickly as possible. There's more that I could show you that are actually doing really well, but I picked a few of my favorites that I'm just extremely impressed with. Let's just jump right into it. The first plant is my Epipriminum elbowviragata. I don't know if any of you remember when I got this plant. I'm pretty sure I unboxed it. It's been several months ago, but it was much smaller than this. It was still a good size, but it was much smaller than this. So I put a pole in the pot and y'all, it's so happy. I noticed immediately after moving how well this plant was doing, how much it was growing. It has 3 individual growth points right now. So I guess I'll show you one of those new leaves. This one literally just opened up and look how pretty it is. I'm really trying hard to get those nice fenestrated leaves. You can see some of the older leaves were a pretty good size. And we have some itty bitty, ooh, that's a good leaf. We have some itty bitty fenestrations in a few of them, like this one, for instance. They're so tiny, they just look like little holes, but that's fenestrations. This plant has just truly thrived in my neglect. Now to be fair, I haven't been neglecting my plants over the last month. I've been working on unneglecting my plants and fixing the boo-boos that occurred after we first moved. So this is one growth point. Here we have another one, which somehow the leaf has went inside the pole. I should probably pull that out. There we go. Here we have the third growth point. Hopefully we can get some of those larger, more fenestrated leaves in the future, but it's just doing really well. I find it so beautiful. I think this plant just looks so nice climbing, and I love it. I'm very proud of it. This is my little baby ring of fire. I definitely did an unboxing with this one. I did an unboxing where I got a few different plants. A couple of them that I had ordered were babies. It's grown a lot. The leaves, whenever I got it, were like this size. There was really no shape to them. There wasn't a ton of variegation. And just look at this newest leaf. It is a really good size, if I do say so myself. This was the leaf before it. I mean, it's literally doubled, I think, in size. And we're getting some of that nice pinky variegation that the Ring of Fire offers. Now, I did have a rather large Ring of Fire a couple years ago. I think I sold it last year. It could have been 2 years ago at this point. And I have regretted that decision ever since because it was so big and it had some of the most beautiful variegation I had ever seen on a Ring of Fire, and it was so orange and pink. I ended up going with a baby this past year, and I just cannot believe how much it's already sizing up and how good the variegation looks. You can see this newest leaf is starting to take on the ruffled edges, and it's just so much bigger. So I'm very happy with this. We do have a new leaf coming in right here. I cannot wait to see this in a couple more months because it's progressing so well. I'm really proud of it. It's in this really precious rainbow planter that I got from Target, and I think it's the perfect match. I love it. So excited to see how large this newest leaf is going to be and if it's even more mature. I'm just really impressed with it. So this is actually a Hoya, and I do have to say most of my Hoyas have all done really well through the moving process. Hoyas are just really resilient. They are, for the most part, not all of them, but the thicker leafed ones specifically are quite drought tolerant, so it's not really a surprise to me. However, this one, the home that we just moved from, we lived there for 2 years, the light there was total crap. It was garbage. We had basically zero natural light. We had very little windows, and the windows we did have, they just did not get good lighting. There was a lot of stuff blocking the windows, other homes, trees, you name it. It was really bad. So a lot of my plants just honestly suffered. They suffered and toughed it out. They went through it over the last 2 years, and since we moved here, we have a ton of natural light. We have great windows. We have more windows. Added on to that, I also have my grow lights up. The plants are getting the best light possible at the moment. This plant was kind of stagnant, honestly. I mean, it grew a little bit over the last couple of years. It's Hoya Obovata, because I don't think I said. It would go months without putting out any new leaves, and then it would put out a few new leaves, and then it would go a few more months. And honestly, we've been here, I think, 3, maybe going on 4 months now, and it's so happy. You can literally see all of the new growth. All of these darker leaves are brand new, and they're everywhere. They're on multiple different vines, and they're so pretty. I love Hoya Obovata. It's one of my absolute favorite Hoyas because I love a round circular leaf. I love a chubby leaf, and I love a splashy leaf. These leaves are just incredibly satisfying to me. The roundness to them, so big and chubby and gorgeous. The splashing, perfect. All of these darker leaves are brand new. And then to boot, this new vine here has, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4 little baby leaves coming in. Like, look at that. They are so cute. I can just tell that it's much happier here in this home with this lighting. I'm extremely proud of it. I have loved this plant even in its downtime when it wasn't really growing that much. I've always loved it. I've never really had any issues with this plant, like I said, other than the fact that it wasn't getting enough light, which was totally not the plant's fault. I never get pests or anything like that on this plant. I love him so much. Hopefully I can get him to bloom for me. That's something that I'm currently working on with, honestly, all of my Hoyas. I want Hoya blooms. I'm expecting some blooms in the future, so I'll keep you updated. We have my lovely Philodendron Lchalk of Red. This was a wish list for years and years and years. I had one, I killed it, got another one, and this one ended up dying back a couple of times over the last 2 or so years, and it's finally getting some size to it again. I will forever be a huge fan of the Philodendron Lchalk of Red. So this is the newest leaf that it gave me. It's been extremely tolerant as well, considering it gets spider mites pretty often, like regularly. I've kept up with the watering pretty well. But yeah, it has taken a little while to acclimate to my new home, but we are getting a new leaf and it hasn't lost any of its older leaves at all since we moved. And look how large this newest leaf is, considering this was a baby that started all over again. That's a good size. I'm just totally infatuated with the suede, velvet, whatever you'd like to call it, on the leaf, but also, obviously, the red abaxial sides. I mean, it's just really a fantastic philodendron. Highly recommend. It's really easygoing. Like I said, it is quite prone to spider mites, but other than that, I mean, it's a great plant. So yeah, we have a new leaf about to emerge from this little growth point right here. I can tell because it's just kind of swelling up and I can see it starting to poke out. We have another variegated babe. Philodendron gigantium variegated. My all green gigantium is doing really well too, and it's a pretty good size. Like, it's done excellent through everything. But I just really adore the variegated version. And another reason why I'm really proud of this plant, like I said, in our previous home we had hardly any light. So a couple of my variegated plants, which you'll see after this one, I have another one that I'm gonna refer back to that was reverting pretty much, and it's coming back now. This plant produced the most gorgeous variegation, right? And then I had started to notice that it was giving me basically all green leaves. And that's, again, totally my fault. Totally my fault. It's from the lack of light. It's not the plant's fault. It happens. But a lot of the time when a plant starts to revert, there's not always a lot of hope that it's going to come back unless you cut it back to the very last variegated leaf. However, it just put out this leaf within the last month. And you guys, I think it's officially hardened off now. Look, it is a beautiful half moon. The variegation is perfect. So it's coming back. It's just so exciting to me knowing the lack of light that we had versus the amount of light that we now have, watching my plants like react to that and react to growing conditions and the light that we now have, it really makes me extremely happy. So yeah, the last 2 leaves before this were almost basically all green. I was getting worried, and now we have this gorgeous half moon variegated leaf. The Philodendron gigantium is such an underrated plant, such an underrated philodendron in general. Like I said, even just the green variety, but the variegated is pretty spectacular, and I'm very, very proud of him. The next variegated plant I was talking about that had, and this one reverted like a good year and a half ago after we moved to our previous home. It was just, and it was such a shame because this plant used to have the most intense variegation that I had probably ever seen on a philodendron Jose Bueno. I mean, it was just incredible, the variegation that it had. Just accepted that this plant had reverted because it was like I said, a year and a half that it was just pushing out green leaves. Some of them would have a speckle or two here and there. It's a very fast, vigorous grower. It always has been. Really fast grower. But it pretty much reverted entirely, y'all. You can see on some of these older leaves, the foliage does kind of green out a little bit. Even the variegated foliage will, the creaminess of it will kind of darken and blend in with the green a little bit more as the leaf matures. So that's to be expected. But yeah, it wasn't putting out much variegation since we had moved to that home. I remember right before we moved, I put it under brighter light, and it kind of started pumping out more variegation. And I was really excited about it because that doesn't always happen with reverted plants. You can see it has a good bit of speckling. It did get burnt at our old house by my Growlights. I just basically threw it right under my Mars Hydro because I was like, I'm going to try my best to get this variegation back. And this is what happened. Like, it grew to touch the Growlight and it worked, but the leaf got scorched. So anyways, this is the leaf that it gave me like immediately after we moved to this new home. And look at it. As I said, the variegation is much more prominent and just kind of like bright and vibrant whenever the leaves first come out, like before they harden. But that's a good amount of variegation considering the rest of the plant is pretty much green at this point. But now, you guys, it is already working on a new leaf. Like, I mean, it's here. It's here. It just hasn't unfurled yet. And I can already tell this is going to be beautifully variegated as well. Like, look at the creaminess right there. Not only has it survived and like thrived basically through the moving process it went through after we moved, but it's also pumping out variegated leaves again, and they're huge. They're huge, okay? Had them for years. We've been on quite the journey, honestly, and what a wonderful plant. Okay, next we have my Philodendron Florida Ghost. Most of these are philodendron, just like most of the plants in all of my videos that are like favorites or what have you are going to be philodendrons because I just love them so much and they're so resilient and fantastic and beautiful, and it's my favorite plant ever. I could have a whole YouTube channel on just philodendrons if I'm being honest. Now, the fun thing about this plant is that you can really play around with it and switch things up with it. It's totally dependent on the care that you give and the lighting that you give, most importantly. I've seen listings for like the Florida Ghost mint variegated. It's the same plant. There is no mint variegated. There's only the Philodendron Florida Ghost. It's solely dependent, which I'm about to show you, on the growing conditions that you give this plant, what the leaf will look like. If you do not give this plant enough light, you will get mostly green leaves. This one isn't totally green, it's kind of minty. Maybe this is a better example. It's still a little bit minty because obviously this plant's never been in no light, but so the less light you give it, the more green the plant will be. If you give it more like medium light, you will get this beautiful minty coloration on the leaf. It's so pretty. Like, look at that. But if you want to get more white on the leaves, just simply put it under brighter light. So right now my plant is getting quite bright light from a grow light over here. I mean, it's directly under a grow light, I should say. And this is the newest leaf it just put out. It just unfurled this. You can see it hasn't even fully straightened out yet. And look how bright and white this leaf is. I mean, it's just gorgeous. And so I had a lot of fun. I've always had a lot of fun with this plant, just kind of moving it around, because sometimes I want a couple minty leaves, and then I want to switch it up and get some more white leaves on it, and then, you know, kind of tone it back down for a little bit. It's really fun, and it makes the plant look really nice to have all of these different shades of white and green on different leaves. Whenever you get a super variegated leaf, you can definitely notice it, you know? Played around with it so much over the last few years, just solely to experiment, and I've gotten so many different shades of green and white. This leaf is really pretty. It's more white than green, but you can definitely see where I have changed up the lighting to get different colors in the leaves. So this is also a relatively fast growing philodendron. Another really awesome thing about this plant is the red petioles. It's so beautiful in contrast with the different colors in the leaves. It makes it really pop, and I adore this plant. So you can definitely see where I gave it more light on that new leaf. And a lot of people will say that these leaves will darken over time as they harden off, but that has not been my experience. And also, if you get a really white or creamy leaf, they don't really crisp up and brown and die off like a lot of other solid white variegated leaves. It can look however you want it to look based on the growing conditions that you put it in. Okay, we're almost done, but another Florida. This is Philodendron Florida Beauty, which is relatively new to my collection. I've had her for maybe 5 months now, maybe 6 even. And again, the Florida varieties are just so easy and resilient and beautiful. So I want to include this one as well. I have gotten basically all fantastic leaves on this plant. But I did notice with this leaf, you can see, which is fine because you do want plenty of green in the leaves. You want chlorophyll, okay? So if it puts out one leaf with more green than yellow, that's fine because you don't want all variegated leaves or the plant would die. But this leaf was not quite as variegated. Um, I mean, it's just, oh, it's so pretty. I love how the variegation on this one is more of a golden yellow rather than white. It's so unique and pretty. This was a wish list plant for years, literally like 5 or 6 years. This was on my wish list, and it was just so expensive. The prices finally began to drop, and I was able to get a good size Florida Beauty this past year, and I have not been disappointed. Again, another really fast grower. This is the newest leaf it just gave me over the last month or so, and look at that. It's practically all yellow. It's like a yellow leaf with green variegation is what it is. I mean, look at it. And that is so exciting compared to the last leaf. You just really don't know what you're going to get. It's definitely sized up pretty significantly since I got it. Each new leaf is more mature and larger, and I love that. And already there is another new leaf pushing up out of this sheath right here. So again, the Florida varieties are just really fast growing, really easy, and really beautiful. So this is Calathea orbifolia. It's a Calathea that is pretty well known in the community to be a diva and to be really difficult, and just, it's not the easiest plant to grow. And there are many other varieties of Calathea that are a lot easier than this one. And I have another one that I've had for a few years now, and it's doing okay, but it doesn't look this good, okay? So I bought this one rather mature. And you guys, this is one that I truly assumed would probably do like shit when we moved, and then we went through a drought period basically because it does not handle underwatering or lack of humidity well at all. And I just got my humidifier up and going like a couple weeks ago. So yeah. Anyways, it put off this leaf, I think right after we moved, which blew my mind. You can tell it's still a little bit lighter than the rest of the leaves. And look at the size on that. It was getting pretty low light, not even gonna lie. It was in my bedroom the whole time until I just moved it in here actually after it put out this leaf. Look at this new leaf. Now, with the Orbifolia, with Calatheas in general, you're going to see some crisping and some brown bits, but if the entirety of the leaf does not crisp up and it still looks semi-healthy and like, you know, okay, it doesn't turn into a crispy mess, then you're doing pretty good. And this one has just handled things so well and doing so well. I'm so proud of it and impressed with it that I just had to talk about it because, like, are you kidding me? We have another new leaf. I don't know if y'all are going to be able to see right here coming up out. It's so cute, and that's really fast as well. So I would say this Calathea is really happy. I just love the size of the leaves. I have always been a big fan of Calathea orbifolia, always, but it is a difficult plant. So I'm really impressed and satisfied with the fact that it's doing so well and growing so well, keeping its size, and the leaves aren't crisping up on me. So yeah, Calathea orbifolia, my larger one, is doing phenomenal, and I'm just really proud of it. I mean, look at her. Look at her. She's gorgeous. Pretty much it. I mean, like I said, there are several more I would love to show and talk about that are doing really well, considering, and growing really well, and I've just really been admiring and that I'm proud of, you know. But I'll save that for another video, I suppose. This is my top few, I'm not sure how many it was, favorites from the moving process and just who have done, like I said, exceptionally well through all of it, and I'm really happy with them. I suppose I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for hanging out and checking out my video. I appreciate you. Bye guys.